Hello and welcome back to Why You're Wrong, a show where we take a look at football's biggest narratives to separate fact from fiction and find out what you might be missing. And on today's show, we look ahead to one of the most hyped potential moves of the summer, the possibility that England and Tottenham star Harry Kane could join Manchester United. Last season, Mikel Arteta was asked what his side needed to do to catch up with Manchester City and Liverpool, and his answer was clear: score more goals. To be with the top teams this season, you need to score 90 to 100 goals at least, the Arsenal boss told The Guardian. Somehow, you need those goals in the team. Don't ask me how, but you need them. They have to come. That contribution, how it's done and how possible it is to happen, you have to find the right pieces to do it, but it's a non-negotiable. Fast forward a year and the Gunners are on track to hit 91 and lead the league. So Erik Ten Hag, facing a rebuild similar to the one Arteta has completed, will need to find more potency in front of goal, with United projecting to score just 58, a tally ranking just 8th best in the division. And so the long-awaited swoop for Harry Kane kinda makes sense, with Tottenham reportedly ready to countenance a sale, the striker open to a new beginning, and in spectacular form, with his present total of 23 league goals bettered by only Erling Haaland across Europe's top 5 leagues. But as you've probably guessed by now, I'm not sure the move is the right one. Let's start where you'd expect me to, but maybe not in the way you'd expect me to. This is not an XG story. Kane is producing less, down to 0.6 from 0.7 expected goals and assists per 90 the last 2 years, but that's mostly down to a drop in creativity, with expected assists dropping from 0.25 per 90 last year, which is absolutely insane, top 6% of forwards in the world range, down to 0.16, which is just in the top 5th of forwards. Now, we could just as easily blame Son's decline and the total lack of runners in the Spurs squad for that, so it would seem a weird stick to beat Kane with, and even when we add in other information like his declining shot numbers, now at 3.4 per 90, second worst of his career, there isn't really a cause for concern, with those shots coming from an average of under 16 yards out compared to roughly 18 yards over the last few campaigns. It seems like Kane has cut out pot shots from distance rather than suffered any actual decline in his ability to get chances. In fact, you could argue he's having his best pure striker season since 2018. You can also, and you're not going to believe that I'm saying this, overlook some of the other stats. Kane gets on the ball less than he has done the last 2 seasons, sure, but he's got more efficient with it, improving his pass accuracy while getting the ball into the box more and completing more progressive passes. Though broadcasters love to put that little box on screen saying who has had the fewest touches, it's normal for keepers and forwards to see relatively little of the football. And you don't actually care if your number 9 only succeeds with 16 passes a game when they're this game changing. But there are some questions about the transition to a Ten Hag team which need to be answered. The first is whether Kane has the intensity Ten Hag wants. Part of the Dutchman's vibes overhaul at United has been bringing some aggression to the way the Red Devils hunt down opponents, hence Ronaldo's exile and the January pursuit of Wout Weghorst, a Labrador of a player, zero predatory instinct but loves to chase the ball. United still have some way to go to catch the superior pressing sides in the Prem, attempting to win the ball back every 11.9 passes compared to 10.3 for City, 9.6 for Arsenal, and the same for Newcastle, but it is an improvement on last year's 12.8 and moving in the right direction. Whether it could continue to do so with Kane and Rashford in the front line is a question, and certainly it would be hard to sustain an elite press with those two plus Sancho. I'm not saying that Kane does nothing defensively, and I'm not saying the only good forwards are the ones who constantly harass defenders. But if the opposition knows that a couple of your attackers don't really want to close them down, they can work around you pretty easily and start to cause you problems. At the very least, Ten Hag would have to do some clever tactical stuff to minimise the effects, or play a more reserved defence, which has its own downsides. This kind of tinkering is a tall order when you're still getting the basics right. But this only hints at the larger issue, which is Kane's age. Now, we're not saying he's about to fall off a cliff, though the drops we saw from Eden Hazard at 28 and Heung-min Son at 30 suggest a little worry is not totally unmerited, but decline will come at some point. Kane has had a long career, playing 483 games for club and country since he became a starter in 2014. That's an average of 54 a season. And in those 9 years, he's missed just 36 out of 334 Premier League fixtures. He's played nearly 600 matches overall, significantly more than other forwards who continue to excel post-30, like Zlatan Ibrahimovic on 527 or Jamie Vardy on just 297. Those games have been at the highest and most exhausting level, and he's had major ankle issues in the past. I also don't really get the argument that because pace isn't a big part of his game, he won't experience a drop. If you start fast and you lose a step, you're probably still quick enough, like Vardy or Ronaldo. If you start quite slow and you get slower still, you might just be a passenger everywhere but the box. And Kane's appeal is not as a straight-up poacher camping out in the area, but as a facilitating forward who can bring the best out of United's wide men. He has to drop deep to do that. It's a bit of a worry. Now, cards on the table, I don't actually think this stuff is likely to be an issue at first, though it could be. I think dropping Harry Kane into this Manchester United attack turbocharges it, so long as you can stop him taking up the same positions as Bruno. You'd also need to figure out the right flank. Antony has only really looked above average at two things this year, shooting and ball carrying, and the arrival of Kane would mean you'd want him shooting less, making him even harder to justify including in the lineup than he currently is. Swapping him out for Sancho would exacerbate the pressing problem I mentioned earlier, so there's going to be a trade-off somewhere. But whatever, put in Kane, more goals, better overall, that's uncontroversial. What I don't see is the plan. United are probably going to get top 4 this season. 538 gives them a 79% shot at present, and yes, they will need to strengthen to maintain that spot, with Liverpool sure to bounce back, Chelsea due to spend another fortune, and so on. But does anyone seriously think United can win a major trophy, a Premier League title, or a Champions League in the next 2 to 3 years, i.e. before Kane goes from getting old to being old? I don't see it, especially as Bruno will hit 30 in that time and Casemiro is already 31. City will probably respond to the tightness of this title race with some reinforcements in the summer, and Arsenal are already young and could add Declan Rice to their squad. Is there reason to believe United can overhaul them when statistically they only look to be the 6th best team in the Prem this year with an expected goal difference per 90 of 0.27, closer to Brentford and West Ham below them than Newcastle and Brighton above? Essentially, United seem keen to do what Arsenal did before they committed to a proper rebuild, buying older, experienced contributors and hoping that this one, or the next one, or the one after that would bridge the gap between them and the superior clubs around them. United are doing that on a much better and more expensive scale, Casemiro and Kane instead of David Luiz and Willian, but the fundamental mistake of that plan remains the same. These signings give you a short window to achieve something, and then you've got to go back to the market, often while still paying an old player who now isn't good enough to start. When he took the United job, Ten Hag was reportedly extremely clear. This is a long-term task, it requires long-term thinking, and it can't be sidetracked or pushed off course by impatience. You can understand that resolve wavering when he sees a chance to jumpstart his project and work with one of the best strikers of this generation. But if he wants to build a dynasty at Old Trafford, he needs to stand firm. So that's our show for today. Let us know what you think about a Kane-led United in the comments below, and don't forget to send in your suggestions for things I've got wrong or questionable football narratives, and you could be featured on the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.